Hi, this is TJ. I want to talk a little bit about the UI240 programmer and how to do settings on your transmission and get it up and running. Once you've made all your wire connections, you got your control module installed, everything's connected up, you can run, you run your cable, whatever, for your display module and programmer. We're going to plug it in here just to show you, it's a quick, easy, snaps in. And now we're going to power it up. We've got a power supply here that's 12 volts regulated, and we're going to do some testing and programming here of it. Now when it's powered up, you're going to see, for one, you're going to see the boot up screens. And once it gets to the home screen, as we call it, first you're going to see the model and the model of the transmission that functions. Now your home screen shows miles per hour, your overdrive gauge indicator, and a torque converted clutch indicator, as well as temperature and governor pressure illustration. So this is the home screen of the display module and programmer. So we have in here, before you can go do any settings, well, let's talk about the buttons first, okay? So we have 4 buttons here that have different functions depending on what screen you're on. At the bottom of each screen, you'll see a title for what the button, or description of what the button's function is. So here in this main one, to get into the settings, we're going to push the far left button here, and it's going to take us to a code entry screen. So we've put in a lock code to prevent any kind of tampering from maybe a child or a friend or something, a buddy who's wants to mess with your controller. This will prevent them from getting there easily. They would, if you have set this number. We defaulted to 10, but it's up to 3 digits, so it can be up to 199, which gives you a wide variance enough to where you can set it to where it would take somebody a little while to get into that. And this is fully adjustable once you get in. So the default is 10, and it defaults there. So we're going to push the accept. Is the next button over. And now we're in the setting screens. So in the setting screens, you got mode, which is your 3 different drive modes. So it's already highlighted. We've got up and down buttons. Now the buttons to the right. One says up, the last one says down, and as you scroll down, it will highlight each menu. All at the bottom says next, would take you to the next menu. But I'm going to go back up, and code would take you into, and I'll say accept with the second button over. And now that's where you would adjust your lock code. You got plus or minus, so you can, plus is going to raise the number up. So I've got it at 13 now, and if I save that there, it would take you changing it to 13 before it would unlock on the next time you go to enter. We're going to take it back down to the 10 and leave it there. And we're just going to back out. So the first button to the left is the back. It's going to take us back to the menu, so you can adjust that. You also have mode, which is your drive modes. So in this particular controller, we have 3 modes that can be configured: normal, tow, and sport. So we talk about the normal mode is the primary mode, and that's the mode that we set defaults in, so you can get up and running. And we encourage you to just leave it in normal mode, get your vehicle going, get it normal drivability for daily driving, whatever. And then from there, you can transfer those settings to the other modes, to tow or sport, and adjust those modes individually and save those settings so you've got different configuration. We're going to, excuse me, we're going to back out, and then next thing down from there is metric. So you can see that you can change it to metric settings. So under metric, it would show kilometers per hour. On the mile per hour screen, it would go to kilometers. And on the temperature, it would go from Fahrenheit to centigrade. And if we go to the next screen, we're going to go down and then say next. And then here is one of the most critical setting. So in the instructions, vehicle speed sensor, VSS is what that stands for, vehicle speed sensor. We have in the instructions, the very first setting is that. we tell you that that is the most critical because all shift points are based on the vehicle speed, and that's our primary input for regulating and making transitions in the controller, getting it to shift the gears and that sort of thing. So this is probably it is the most critical setting in the whole controller. We defaulted at 20 or 21, and that is a setting that we've come to believe that functions with a 3/4 ton pickup, maybe with a standard gear ratio and a standard tire size. It should get you going. If you can get up to 40 miles an hour, that's what we suggest that you try to set this at to make it more accurate for your vehicle. If not, even a lower speed, 15, 10 miles an hour, whatever, but you need to get it adjusted as close as possible until you can get the gears shifting, and then once you can get up to 40 or 50 miles an hour, you may want to tweak it to get it more precise. But it needs to be as close as possible for it to function properly. It is a divider, so what we're doing is we're taking the pulses from the reluctor wheel on the output shaft of the transmission, which is read by the vehicle speed sensor, and those are on the Dodge transmission. This RE series is 32 pulses per revolution. We take that measurement in and we divide it down to get the speed that we're showing you on the screen with this divider number. So the higher this number, the slower it's going to show on the miles per hour. The lower this number, the mile per hour is going to show faster. So keep that in mind. It's kind of opposite of what you would think. But it is critical to get this adjusted properly. So once that's adjusted, then the next step you would go to governor pressure. And we're going to back out of this and go down to next. Let's select next. And we got 3 settings here: governor, overdrive, and torque converter control. Now governor is, on these transmissions, is a governor pressure solenoid. And this is what makes the shift points between first to second and second to third gear. And so this is your most critical setting. I encourage people, do not mess with the overdrive or torque converter engagement until you get your 1, 2, 3 shifts set close to where you like it and it's shifting properly. So under this menu, I'm gonna accept and go into that. And the very first one is the governor adder at the top. Now if we want to adjust that, it's highlighted, and I'm going to hit accept, and it's going to take us to the adjustment screen for that. The top setting is the governor pressure adder itself, which will alter that pressure applied, vary it based on 2 things. One, the speed that's coming in from the vehicle, and the throttle position sensor indication. So we have throttle position adjustment as well here, the sensitivity, and governor. So if we add to this governor number here, what it's going to do is make it shift sooner. The higher this number, the sooner it shifts. The lower the number, the longer it's going to hold out. So if you've started your vehicle up, you've got everything connected up, you put it in drive, you take off, and it's not shifting to second gear, your RPM's maxing out, what do you need to do? You need to go in here. I tell people first, lower the throttle position sensitivity, because we set it at 50%, which is fairly high. Take that down to about 10 or 15%, so it's not applying much throttle to it. Then raise the number on the governor pressure adder, because you raise it up, it's going to make it shift sooner. In some transmissions, it's required to raise it to 70, 80 on the adder before it will shift. But because it all depends on the valve body, the governor pressure solenoid you're using, and the line pressure. Line pressure on these transmissions is controlled by the throttle valve cable. If you do not have your throttle valve cable connected to the throttle linkage, I encourage you to do that, because it is critical that you have proper line pressure, primarily for holding the clutches. If you don't have enough, it's not going to hold the clutches. If you don't hook the cable up, I'm pretty certain it defaults to full pressure, which makes it very difficult for this governor pressure solenoid to actuate properly. So your shift points are going to be erratic, and you may be able to get it to work, but the only time you're going to want full pressure is if you're racing or pulling a super heavy load. So I suggest that if you're not have that cable connected, connect it up. If you want to set it at a fixed setting, some customers do. They'll put an adjuster on there, like a turnbuckle or something, to the cable. I say set it around 50–60%. Go drive it, see if it shifts firm enough. If not, you can adjust it up or adjust it down if it's too firm and if it's not shifting properly. But if you have proper line pressure, the governor pressure solenoid will actuate easier. So again, this is what's making that 1, 2, 3 shift. Once you get that set properly, then you can go and you can tweak your throttle position at or later. If it's not kicking down or holding gear long enough under a certain amount of throttle, you can raise that number back up, which will increase the sensitivity on the throttle position sensor. But once you got those settings correct, you'd save it. You're going to go back, and once that's done, then you can go down and adjust your overdrive. So you've got a full menu for overdrive, which is going to have engage speed and disengage speed. And you're going to have throttle position sensitivity here as well. Each setting in the throttle position sensor on these settings are all independent of each other. So governor throttle position sensor sensitivity is totally independent of this throttle position setting here. So here you would set the speed at which you'd want the overdrive to engage and the speed at which you'd want it to disengage. And the throttle at which applied would make it disengage the overdrive. So you're cruising along at 50 miles an hour, you got it in overdrive at 48 miles an hour, so you're in overdrive, you apply 40% throttle. If you got it set at 40, it's going to kick it back down to third gear and disengage the overdrive. So that's how that functions. Same thing applies, and again you can make these adjustments, you can save them, then you can go back, and then you can go down and adjust your torque converter. Very similar to overdrive. You got engage, disengage of the torque converter clutch. Now this can be, I tell people, is adjust this last. Make sure you've got the other settings correct, that you've got 1, 2, 3 shift, you've got overdrive kicking in where you want it. Then go ahead and add the torque converter engage at whatever speed, engage, disengage, and at what throttle amount you want it to apply to kick it back out and disengage it. Now, one critical thing is always make certain you've got the disengage setting at a lower speed than the engage speed. If you have the opposite of that, the disengage higher than the engage speed, then you're going to create what's called a loop. It'll just sit there in and out, in and out, in and out, because it doesn't know what to do. So it's very critical that you set your disengage speed slower than the engage speed. And that's pretty much it. And once you get those settings made, then you can copy. If you change to your tow mode or sport mode, you can copy those settings over. It's going to have to do it manually. There's no way to copy and paste in this, but a piece of paper, write it down, and I suggest you do that anyways. You can write it on the instructions on each page, what you set each setting at. There's instructions here telling you how to adjust. Well, there's a white space out beside, and you can write down the settings that you've made for each of yours. Keep your instructions in your glove box. That way if something happens, you need to adjust later, you can do so. You've got your settings that work for your transmission. Again, you can copy those normal settings over to your sport mode or your tow mode, and then make your tweaks from there. Maybe you want the overdrive to kick in later on a tow mode and third gear to hold longer. But you want your torque converter to engage at a lower speed if you're towing something. So you can lower the torque converter to engage in third gear at a slower speed. So that's pretty much it. If you have questions or need help with this, once you get it all plugged in, connected up, if there's a little question you have on setting those perimeters, feel free to call us or email us. We'll answer as quickly as we can. Thank you. Well, thank you for watching our video, and we really want to just say that we appreciate any business you're giving us. We're here to support you 100%. If you need a quick reply, a phone call, we do answer phone calls when we can. If it's in business hours, we will, if not answering it, we will return your call as quickly as possible. If it's not super urgent, I encourage you to send an email to the info@E-TransControl.com. We will answer any email within 24 hours. So appreciate your business and look forward to helping you out here and getting your vehicle going. Thank you.